Paul Kossoff was born September 14th, 1950 in Hampstead, London, England. He was most famously known for being the guitarist for the blues rock band Free. Kossoff first picked up the guitar at age 9, taking classical guitar lessons, which continued until he was 15. In 1965, Kossoff saw Eric Clapton with John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, which sparked Paul's interest in switching from classical to blues guitar. In 1966, Paul got a job as a salesman at Selmer's Music Shop, where he happened to meet Jimi Hendrix, and watched him play while trying out guitars. This chance meeting had an immediate impact on Paul and his future. Kossoff's playing career began with his first band, Black Hat Bones, in 1966. The drummer in that band was a young Simon Kirke. The pair later joined up with Paul Rodgers and Andy Fraser in 1968 to form Free. That year, Free released their debut album, Tons of Sobs. It is a blues rock album that consisted mostly material from their live set at the time. All the members of the band were extremely young, none of them yet 20 years old, and in fact, Andy Fraser being only 16 years old. In 1968, Free released their second album, which was self-titled. It peaked at number 22 on the UK charts. Their third album, Fire and Water, was the band's breakthrough, displaying Paul's brilliant guitar work, and had a hit with the song All Right Now. The band's next release, Highway, didn't fare as well, and started tensions within the band, which led to the band's breakup. Kossoff and Simon Kirke stayed together, however, and formed the band Kossoff, Kirke, Tetsu, and Rabbit. Bassist Tetsu Yamauchi and keyboard player John Rabbit Bundrick rounded out the band. Interesting side note here, they both ended up in Free later on. They released their self-titled album in 1971. In 1972, the members of Free decided to bury the hatchet and reform. That year, they released the album Free at Last, which was pretty successful, peaking at number 9 on the UK charts. However, Paul's condition had deteriorated greatly by this point due to drug addiction, and the tour for this album suffered, with Paul finally pulling out because of his condition. Free released the album Heartbreaker in 1973 before disbanding again. This would be their last album. In 1973, Paul would release a solo album entitled Backstreet Crawler, which featured some excellent playing featuring Paul Kossoff's signature bends and vibrato. He would later form a band using the name of his solo album. They released 2 albums, The Band Plays On, which was released in 1975, and Second Street in 1976. Unfortunately, these were the only 2 albums they would release, as Paul Kossoff died on a flight from Los Angeles to New York on the 19th of March, 1976, from a pulmonary embolism after a blood clot in his leg moved to his lung. He was only 25 years old. Paul Kossoff's first guitar was a 1960 Echo 500, but seemed to favor the Les Paul there afterwards, first owning a 1957 Les Paul Jr., as well as a couple of Les Paul Customs, and a number of Les Paul Standards. He also played a white Fender Stratocaster, which can be seen on his solo album cover. This guitar ended up in the hands of Iron Maiden guitarist Dave Murray, which ended up being painted black and 2 DiMarzio Super Distortion humbuckers installed. I wonder what Paul would think of this little modification. In 2012, Gibson released a Kossoff signature 1959 Les Paul, modeled off of one of his most famous guitars. As far as amps go, he seemed to have used a number of Marshalls as well as Selmer and Fender amps. Paul's playing has generated praise from a number of legendary guitarists, including Eric Clapton, Angus Young, and Joe Bonamassa. Although his playing career was cut short, Paul Kossoff's music lives on and continues to inspire countless guitarists through the years, including myself. I hope you enjoyed this little look back at a pioneering guitarist I think more people should know about. Thanks for watching.